Hello, and welcome back to The Culture Shift with Jocelyn Jovan, our podcast aimed at inspiring the leaders of tomorrow, brought to you by Black Enterprise. Here, we like to review the success stories of today's tastemakers to encourage those who dare to dream big. Today is a special episode because we're getting an exclusive announcement from Dr. Wendy Osefo, star of The Real Housewives of Potomac, host of The Dr. Wendy Show, entrepreneur, wife, mother, and now distinguished professor at the prestigious Wesleyan University. The television star and political commentator gives us exclusive insight about her new coursework at Wesleyan that she personally designed to tackle conversations on how reality television shapes societal perceptions. So join me in welcoming the one and only Dr. Wendy Osefo. Miss Four Degrees.
Hey!
So I'm really delighted to be speaking with you today, because I am a fan of the Real Housewives of Potomac and just looking at this season, how much lighter it is, but also just where you're going in your career as you make your transition. I'm looking forward to just talking to you and digging into that some more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So each season, we are now in season 9. Each season, you kick off the show with a new venture, whether it's whether it's a candle line, launching your talk show, your book. This season, however, it wasn't so much as like starting something, it was a step back where we saw you take the big step of sending that email to resign from your professor role at Johns Hopkins University. And you were saying that you were doing that to focus more on your family. And you admitted that it wasn't an easy decision for you to do. What led you to making that pivotal decision?
So that's funny that you caught on to that, right? Like I'm always doing something and now I'm ending something. And I think that that is really reflective of where I am in my life. I feel like for my career, I have worked so hard and have pushed myself to limits that even have impacted me health-wise as well. And I just realized that I need to take a stop for a second and just appreciate all I've done, but also make sure not to lose the moments of motherhood
Mhm.
because they pass you by so quickly. When I started this show, my daughter was still, in her swing, getting rocked to sleep. And now you guys see her in the kitchen cooking with myself and my mother. And that's how fast that motherhood, one, goes by, but also your children grow. And I was just like, I don't want to wake up and say, where were these moments and how was I not involved in these moments? I want to be there. And so I decided to take a pause on my professorship, resigning from my university, but really just taking stock in my children and them reaching their amazing milestones. My daughter started kindergarten this year. My oldest started middle school. My middle child is in the fourth grade. And just do the things that I've missed out on because I was so knee deep in my career. So, like just last week, I chaperoned 2 field trips for my kids, one of which I did while I was like under the weather, but I was like, I have to do this for my kids. And it's just really beautiful just to be fully entrenched in motherhood and enjoying it. And
Mhm.
that's where I am. I'm loving being mommy, but not just by the title, but being present as
Yes.
mom. I
Yes.
love
I
it.
get it. I get it. I'm a new mom myself. My baby's 4 months old, and I have the luxury of working remotely. So I'm
Mm.
able to still be present with her. But at the same time, I could imagine if there was something, at times I do travel a lot for work. So I am having to leave her at times. But I also think of the moms who do have roles where they have to regularly leave the house and just that battle with yourself of like, oh, I want to be with my child. So if you do have that luxury to be able to make that decision of either taking a step back or taking on, something more that you could be based at home, I completely understand because motherhood is priority.
Yes, priority number one for me.
So I picked up on some of the verbiage when you said taking a slight pause
Yeah.
from teaching. Now, your time away from teaching won't be long, I hear. Is there, can you tell us anything about your new role that
Yeah.
is at Wesleyan, the prestigious Wesleyan University?
Yeah, so I I resigned from my position at my other university at Johns Hopkins, and I just took the summer just to take stock of what it is I really wanted to do if I ever got back into the foray of teaching, and taking stock of what I want to give to my students. And so I traveled with my family over the summer, went to different places, and I had an epiphany, and I said, I really want to teach a course in which I am able to marry my academic career with some of the work I'm doing now, and that is on reality TV. So I just started writing and writing, and one sentence led to two, and then two sentences led to 4 pages. And then eventually I had all of these pages where I was like, I want to do a class. And I wrote up a class, and it's titled The Sociology of Reality TV.
Mhm.
And I had the readings, and I had these are the themes for each week. And I was like, let me pitch this to different universities to see who would be interested in this. And, lucky for me, the first university I pitched it to, they were like, we love this. We would love for you to teach. Like, come on, teach this course. And not only was it like, okay, you can be a professor, they were like, no, we want you to be a distinguished professor.
I
And
love that.
that is something that is just so rewarding because in my career as a professor, one thing I did mention was I didn't feel appreciated. I didn't feel like, people saw the value in what I brought to the institution. But for Wesleyan, as much prestige as they have, to see me and
Mhm.
to say, not only do we want you, but we want you to have the title of distinguished professor, I was like, this is a sign,
Mhm.
it's good sometimes to take a step back, because when we take steps back, it often leads to us taking steps up.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yes. So this is the first time you have the role as a distinguished professor.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's
Yes.
amazing. I remember I had a professor in college, and when it came time for the review, he would always say things like, well, I'm a distinguished professor, so you can give me what you want. It's not going to affect me. So I just kind of always knew, like, okay, if you're a distinguished professor, that's a different level.
It,
So
it's definitely
congratulations.
Thank you. It's definitely a different level. And as a Black woman, as a woman of color, it holds weight, and it means a lot to me. And especially for that to be given to me after I submitted a course that I wrote. That that's very a big
Yes.
one for me.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I feel it for you, the excitement.
Oh,
So, if there's anyone that can seamlessly bridge academia with popular culture, it's Dr. Wendy. Okay. But tell us about your plan to align the two sectors.
I think that sometimes when we look at reality TV, we think that for some people it's mindless entertainment, it's their release, a form of escapism. But what we have to realize is that reality TV has a way of reaffirming notions seen in our society and sometimes creating them.
Mhm.
And that's where the academic lens comes in. It's what are you watching and how are you consuming what you're watching? And
Mhm.
how does what you consume then impact the way in which you function in society? And that's the sociology of it. Because the truth of the matter is, if you live in a city that's populous and diverse, you have the opportunity to be around different types of people. But let's take, for instance, people who are in rural communities, or even sometimes the reality shows that are in America are shown overseas. If
Mhm.
you've never encountered someone from the place or regionality that you're watching, you start to believe that this is how everyone that looks like this is from here,
Mhm.
talks like this is how they function.
Right.
And there's sociology to that. And that's what my class really focuses on is, yes, you're seeing Black women on Real Housewives and the way in which they're operating. Yes, you're seeing Mormons on Salt Lake City and the ways in which they're operating. But if you've never met a Black woman or interacted with them or have one within your social circle, or you've never met a Mormon and interacted with them or have one in your social circle, then your only reference point is what you watch. Now ask yourself, is what you just watched a good representation or a bad representation?
Mhm.
And that's the jumping off point of my class about how what we consume has a way of shaping our own thoughts on identity and race and classism and gender. It shapes everything.
Right. Some course content I read, it includes how reality TV reflects and influences societal perceptions of race, skin complexion, and ethnicity in American culture, and the societal impact of reality television.
Mm.
We've seen conversations around colorism and classism raised, particularly on your show, The Real Housewives of Potomac, with you at the center of these discussions. Do you plan on using your new course to offer more education and insight on these global issues?
I think it's interesting that we talked about it in reality TV, but one thing I'll never forget that I said in season 5 at the reunion was, if we know that colorism exists in our society, how can we say it doesn't exist here? So
Mm,
my class basically looks at it not necessarily from a RHOP landscape, but from a global landscape, right? These are isms that exist right now. We can even look at the way in which mainstream media is handling election 2024 with a woman of color and a white man,
mm,
and what are the narratives that are being played out. So
mm,
I think that just in general, outside of reality TV, media in general has a way of reinforcing these isms that we see.
mm,
And the question then becomes, is it on purpose or is it by happenstance?
mm,
And those are the really big conversations that we need to start having. And, my students start having those conversations. They just dissected America's Next Top Model season 4, and they were talking about an episode where, one contestant was seen as aggressive and a
mm,
white woman did this, but she wasn't labeled as aggressive. Like, those
right,
conversations need to be
right,
had, not necessarily to pinpoint to me and say you're the bad guy,
right,
but we also have a responsibility as viewers to know what we're consuming and how we're consuming it. And that's why I want us to start doing. I don't want us to blame production companies or editing or any of that.
right.
It's up to us as viewers to be able to say, "Oh, I peep game.
Exactly.
I know what's going on here. I see what's going on." And
Right.
just be mindful consumers.
Right. Viewers were a little expressed some of their disappointment with this season in particular. We did see you sitting down, particularly with Giselle Bryant, and kind of hashing things out and moving forward. But even with that conversation, I guess many viewers, considering the past of what's happened, wanted to see a little bit more depth revisited. You let us know via Twitter that that was discussed. It just didn't make the show. So when you say things like what you just mentioned about like editing, you don't blame, you can't blame editing. Do you think that was maybe done, you know, purposely or strategically to kind of just feel like we're moving past that? We don't want to keep revisiting these kind of conversations that could draw up strong feelings from our viewers. What was your thoughts on how that conversation was portrayed on the show?
Well, I can't, it's not in my wheelhouse to say what their thinking was when they presented it. I know that there's 7 women on this show. We only have, what, 45 minutes with commercials for us to present certain things. So they do the best that they can given the time constraints that they have. But what I wanted to know, and I felt like it was important to our viewers because our viewers are so invested in the show and we appreciate that. I wanted them to know that I know a lot of them have strong feelings about that relationship. And I want them to know that it was a very robust discussion.
Okay.
And it was robust to the point of 2 hours robust. Everything was brought up. And, I think that sit down in and of itself could be a special. Like, it didn't even have to be a part of RHOP. That could have been like, tune in at 5 p.m. on Tuesday for the 2 hour sit down special. But again, it is it's a collective. It's about the cast. It's not the Wendy show. It's
Yes.
about everyone. So I understand. However, I know it sits okay in my heart because I was there.
Okay.
And I have no regrets in that conversation in the sense of I said everything.
Good.
Whether they showed it or not, that's up to them. I can't handle it. I can't, kick myself about that. But what I know is when I said everything, there was a point where I said something. She said, "Oh my God, you still got more?" I said, "Yes, I do." Okay, because we have been on this road a long time and I got things to say.
Yes.
So I got all off my chest. So
Good.
I'm happy with it. And I hopefully the viewers can understand that we cannot show
Right.
everything, but please know when I said I stood on business, I stood on business.
Good. That good. That gives me reassurance as well. I was one of those strong viewers. I am a huge fan of just the Real Housewives franchise in general, but Potomac being one of my favorites. And last season infuriated me so much, I had to take
Mm,
a break from the show.
mm,
I not only did I take a break from the show, I had to mute the hashtags and stuff on Twitter because I just couldn't even see it because it was affecting me that much. You talk about the sociology. It was
mm,
like I had to take a step back because I was like, I can't allow a television show to affect me this much, but it wasn't just because of the television show. It was because of just some of the conversations that these are
mm,
real life issues. And I felt like they were kind of being sensationalized for a
mm,
television show. So as a Black woman, I just was like, okay, I'm going to take a break and I'll check back for the reunion.
mm. I can
This
respect that.
season does feel a little bit more just lighthearted and more friendly shade, and even
Mm.
just seeing you and Eddie going on date night, which I'm gonna get into a little later. It's just more refreshing and like a breath of fresh air. So I appreciate that.
It was for me too. I'll be honest with you. This season, I came into it with a lot of hesitance. And I was like, what is this gonna be? But when I tell you by the end of it, it was my favorite season to date. I was like, okay, you know, I walked out of it feeling okay. I was like,
Good.
oh, this was
Oh,
good.
good.
Yeah.
I love that. So we have seen you incorporate your business ventures and endeavors in the show. Will we see you incorporating your new coursework at Wesleyan into the show?
Not this season
Okay.
because that happened after we wrapped. Like I really this was, sometimes people do things for storylines, but this was really you guys follow me on a journey from like when I submitted my resignation letter and it wasn't effective that day. It was at the end of the semester because I was still teaching throughout the time we were filming. I wanted to end the semester, and then after that, I took some time off. So you guys won't see that, but you guys will see me delve into other things.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a tough decision to make, but I'm so glad I did resign when I did.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Everything happens as it's
Yes,
supposed to
it
happen and
does.
when it's supposed to happen. So you shared that you took a pause from teaching to focus on your role as a wife and mother. How is your new schedule helping you spend more time at home? I mean, you mentioned it with your kids, and what do you find yourself doing with that time that you probably weren't able to do before?
Oh, it's so much different. In my prior university, I was teaching 6 courses an academic year, and that's just a heavy load. Now I only have to teach one, the one I wrote, the one I call my fourth baby. So that's amazing for me. And it allows me to be more present in the sense of just being with the kids and having more time to do their extracurricular with them. Like tonight, my daughter has hip hop dance class, and then tomorrow my boys have football practice, and I'm really, really, present. And then it's also helped me with my marriage in the sense of me and Eddie go on more date nights and we get to hang out and we get to just be around each other. And it's not me saying, okay, I'll be right back because I have to meet with this student. At the end of the day, I take my career very seriously. So when my students need me, I am there for them. And that's fine and dandy. But if you're teaching 6 courses and you have
Yeah.
25 to 30 kids in each course, you become a mom to over 100 kids. And that's hard. But
Mhm.
now, it's more easy to manage. Eddie loves it. I love it. So we're all a happy bunch in the Osefo household.
Yes, that date night that is in the new episode is so adorable. Him helping you pick out your outfit, and then y'all posing for pictures in the mirror. I mean, the fans have favorite husbands among the franchises, and Eddie is definitely a favorite
Oh,
among the husbands. We love us some Eddie, some happy Eddie.
thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. He loves y'all back.
So between Real Housewives of Potomac, the Dr. Wendy show, which is doing really well, Shout out to you for that. Political commentary, because you are a consistent voice within the political space, and I really enjoy just seeing you offer your take while also knowing everything else that you do. So to allocate time to that is just shows your dedication. You also have Onye Home Essentials, Happy Eddie Cannabis, and your book. How are you navigating all of your business ventures and still maintaining your role as a present wife and mother?
I think it's really important for me to give myself grace. I think that sometimes as women and as mothers and as wives, we try to be the best and be perfect for everyone except for ourselves. And that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. So I try my best to know that each day I will have different goals that I try to achieve, and I know I can't do it all. So some days I will, be knee deep in only home essentials and helping my team get orders out and all of that stuff. But I know that on that day, maybe I'm late returning feedback to one of my students. But it's okay. The world is not going to come crashing down. It's okay for you to prioritize certain tasks on different days. And that's what I have grown to do. So today, I lectured my students. I did amazing at that. I have hip hop dance with my daughter later today, and I'm going to do those things. Tomorrow, I jump into a board meeting with the Happy Eddie cannabis brand, and I will do that. And I think it has come with time where I've realized that if you are going to have a few things on your plate, you can't expect to touch each of them every single day.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. And I'm okay with that. It's just all about juggling. But in the midst of juggling, don't forget who you are and making sure you're okay. So I start each day with a meditation. I meditate every single day. I just take that 10 minutes to myself to have a guided meditation, and then I journal and I pray. If I do those three things, then I know that I have fed myself, for lack of a better word. And once I am full, I can then feed others.
Wow. Thank you. I actually needed that. So thank you for that
Oh,
advice. You were giving me advice, and anyone else who, yeah, you're trying to be a superwoman because that's
yeah,
kind of what we do. We think, oh, I
you
can do it
do.
all, but sometimes just don't forget to pour back into yourself.
You have to. You have to.
Do you find that your roles as a professor, a political commentator, and a reality television star influence each other?
I think so. I think if you say that it doesn't, you're not being honest with yourself. I think it does. If I'm at lunch or dinner with the girls and we're having a kiki and then they start arguing back and forth, my professor hat kicks in and I start trying to add up the clues and doing my research. I'm like, that don't make sense because if that makes sense, then this doesn't make sense. So
Ah,
I think that they all,
yeah.
all, all, all play on each other. And then eventually there was a time where I tried to separate all of them, but then
Mhm.
I realized that once you bring them all together and they melt, that's who you are. That's Wendy. That's what makes you different. Is
Yeah.
that you occupy all of these spaces and that's who you are. And it's okay if you sometimes are Professor Wendy on the reality show or your reality show Wendy in the classroom. It's okay. It's okay because there once you know who you are, you know that there's no separation to you. You just are. And once you are, you just exist. And that's what I'm doing right now.
I love it. I mean, before you go, we are in an election season. I can't let you go without asking, how do you feel about the increasing role of women in politics and the importance that they play when it comes to just being represented, women
Yeah.
being represented among elected officials?
That's a great question. I absolutely love it. I think there was a time that, so many of us can even think of where we never fathomed a woman being the president, let alone the potential of a Black woman being the president of the United States of America. And I just love the fact that so many women are being civically engaged because when you look at it, a lot of the rules, the regulations, the policies are not only impacting us, but impacting our bodies. And then there also comes a time as a woman when you look at your children and you start seeing how those policies also directly impact them. So it's not just about the 2024 election for me. I think it's the long game. We have to realize that the same way we want representation when it comes to being people of color, is the same way we also want representation as far as being a woman, because there are certain things that we do differently and think about differently. And I think it's important for us to have a seat at the table. And like, I think it's Shirley Chisholm, she said, if you don't have a seat at the table, then bring a folding chair. And I feel like that is the mantra going forward. If they don't make space for us, then that's fine because we make space for ourselves. And I want us as women to continue going down that path of knowing it's not for anyone to open the door for us. It's us. And then when we open the door, we have to make sure that we leave it open for another woman to come behind us. So I'm super excited. I think this is a turning point, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the outcome will be. But no matter what it is, we will never forget this time, this place, and how much we were all energized in this moment.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So just what's next for Dr. Wendy, and what are you most looking forward to?
Ooh, what's next for Dr. Wendy? I think what's next for Dr. Wendy is being in this good space. I think for me, I've always been the type of person where I'm looking at the next best thing. And in this 40th chapter of my life, I'm realizing that I'm living in the dream that I prayed for. And sometimes we work so hard and we move so fast that we don't realize that some of the things we prayed for years ago, they're actually have manifested now. And for me, it's just to be the best at what I'm currently doing, whether that's the Dr. Wendy Show, Happy Eddie Cannabis, professor at Wesleyan University, Real Housewives of Potomac, mommy, wife. I have so much in front of me that I'm not moving from this place, but I want to perfect this place. And that's what's next for me, is perfection.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wendy. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, thank you so much. Take care of that baby.
Oh, yes, I will.